The Ramble On, talking media to death and diving into spoilers with Brendan.
And Nick, an autopsy for the sinners, an ascension for the saints of film and television.
All right.
Alright. It's Ramble On time.
Woot! Mm-hmm. Now, because I've seen all three of Ari Aster's movies, I do want to say, first and foremost, there are some common calling cards this guy has. The first, most prevalent ones are his use of orchestra. It's good, but it can drag on for a long period of time, which kind of segues into his suspense scenes.
Well, I feel like I want to stick on the orchestra for a second, because that's been a thing before in his movies where there are these really long orchestrated scenes. But this one, we get a twist with that right off the bat, where that's kind of a punchline a lot of times, where you'll see the orchestra just standing there, looking creepy, while they're playing music. Like, over and over this happens, where the band is part of the ambiance. Like, they're in the scene, and it's kind of hilarious every time.
That's true. Whereas, you don't see that happening in Jaws or the other two Ari Aster movies. The suspense. It's heavily telegraphed, but again, that drags on for quite a while. But this one did it better, in contrast to his other two movies, I felt. Mm-hmm. And the other calling card of his is...
refusing to end, I think.
Yeah, refusing to end, because they go on. I mean, my God.
And again, though, whereas in previous movies it's felt like I kind of had to look at my watch and say, okay, hurry up. This is one where I was kind of sitting and thinking, is he going to end it now? When is he going to end it? Is he fucking with me?
Yeah.
And I think he was.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. As my first movie, and excuse my my throat clearing, I'm just ate some good fatty food and phlegmy from the cheese on my little burger, big burger. But yeah, so this is my first movie that I've seen by him, and it's interesting in the way that, for one, definitely he has an interesting way that he builds suspense, and almost has these fake outs. It's a lot of fake outs of, oh, well, what? This is something real crappy is gonna go down here, and then it doesn't, and then the real crappy thing happens. And I love that, and I also love that he does take his time a little bit. The pacing feels a little slow, almost in the scene, but then some beautiful cuts to skip ahead. I love that. So it's almost like, I'm gonna spend a little more time here, and it might seem unnecessary, but you'll kind of get it, and you kind of feel like maybe more in tune with that scene, and then he skips a whole bunch of crap that he could have, maybe another director would have wasted sort of going through, and I think that balances out and makes it so it's like, okay, that's cool, that makes sense.
Absolutely,
that's a good point.
I agree. The editing in this film especially was unbelievably great.
Unbelievable.
There are some
Great.
fantastic just smash cuts or hard cuts into this imagery. One thing I want to talk about, which this is a plot point, but basically the movie, about the midway point, right before things go to hell, two elderly people at age 72 commit suicide. And it's graphic. We see every part of it. We see their faces for a prolonged period of time. And there's a point in the movie where I can't remember what happened before. They're having an argument or something like that. They go to bed, and then immediately a hard cut straight to these discolored, horrible faces being burned. It's a gross out. I love that editing.
Yeah.
It's perfect, and there's all kinds of editing like that in this movie.
Yeah. I love the essentially the ending of the first act. Literally was just they're going. It's where Florence Hughes plays the main lead. Goes in the apartment when the group of guys is talking about their trip, and then she sits down and she's talking to that guy. I forget the names, but so she's talking to him. He starts making her think about her parents. She's like, I have to go to the bathroom. And it cuts immediately to the
airport. Oh, that's right. That was such a good
she
cut.
goes into the bathroom, and it's boom, the airplane bathroom. And that's literally here's the first act done, moving in. It was such a great way to kind of finish off things and move through the story.
It was great too, because during that same scene, she sits down in her seat, looks out the window. There's some rumbling of stuff, and it cuts straight to her looking out the window with the car right afterwards.
Yes. Beautiful series. Yeah. Let's talk to this a little more.
We can talk to this, but
so honestly, that was a good kind of overview. Do we want to start anywhere talking about this? Do you guys go into the story, or do you just want to talk?
We do kind of vivisect some parts.
Go through each part.
I feel like we should probably talk about the story. If we want to do it piece by piece, for sure. If we want to talk about our favorite parts of the story, yeah.
Don't mind me. I'm the guest. I am the extra here. So you.
All right. Yeah. In that case, then let's go on to the story. Then, so I want to talk about first how this movie, and I think you mentioned this coming out of the theater. The opening parts of it feel like a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah. I especially. I mean, that literally the start of the movie with that. The scene, the drawing, like that parts open to the
Woods.
That's a West End. I mean, and it does have a playful sense to it, and the way the characters are interacting, it's sort of almost like I don't even know what the word is, but it's
like a whimsical little.
Yeah,
it starts off as a
definitely.
whimsical fairy
It's
tale.
whimsical, and then it becomes whimsical horror, and.
Yeah, I kind of get that feeling too. And one thing this movie does really well, especially early on, where it's relevant, is it nails that feeling of awkwardness in a conversation, or that feeling of someone being a third wheel in a conversation.
Yeah,
that comes up a lot
Dialogue's
early
nice.
on.
Dialogue is really nice. The actors again do a great job kind of interacting.
They do.
And it does, it follows that, the classic horror type of story arc in a sense that, they're starting out normal, everyone's hanging out, and then, it very quickly sort of starts to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a movie where I feel like a major part of one of the themes of the story is probably that it's a meta-analysis of horror films. Because if you look at this in Cabin in the Woods, for example, the very beginnings of the film have huge similarities.
Yeah, you have your typical gang of teenagers going into a wood or outlandish settlement.
Yeah, they've been told, I got a family place that's out in the woods. You guys are going to love it.
Yeah.
Sure enough, they don't.
But this movie is so self-aware, and the movie, one of the things it avoids is it doesn't feel like it's trying to get the characters somewhere. It feels like we're always in the moment with the characters.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah. So to really dive into things here, I think there's something. I think a lot of for one early in the movie you see, lots of signs, things in the background, the paintings that kind of foreshadow. A lot of the foreshadowing is going on, and you see I think the theme of a big part of the theme, and I mentioned in the Ramble On about dealing with emotions, dealing with grief. You see that when Danny, the main character, her parents die, she finds out, she's crying. And really, it's like, it comes back to she's sort of suffering alone. Yeah. And you see her boyfriend come in, or Christian come in, and sort of try to comfort her, but you kind of feel like something's it's not really as supportive as
but
maybe half the effort.
Speaking of, I want to talk about filmography here again, because the way that they frame the parents in the beginning, where they're lying there listening to her, supposedly listening to their daughter's voice on the voice tape, you get the feeling that she's being ignored, or she pulls this shit all the time. Her boyfriend must be right, and then we find out, oh no, they're dead from carbon monoxide poisoning, and her sister has a hose taped to her face.
Which is another great example of going back to how Ari does this sort of fake out, because in the beginning I thought, so the movie starts out, we're hearing this message come from the voicemail or from the phone, and it starts to pan over, and I thought we were going to see blood, stab, death. No, you don't. Actually, it looks like they're alive. They're fine.
Way worse.
Come to find out, again, it's that fake out where you're like, oh my gosh, shit's going to go down. Oh, no, it didn't. And then, boom, it hits you like, whoa, that's way more fucked up than I would have thought.
Shit already went down.
Yeah.
Immediately. That is one thing I like about Ari Aster. He is not afraid to make it gruesome. He kills kids in his movies. He has gruesome deaths in his movies. I mean, he pushes some envelopes, which is kind of a refreshing change of pace for the whole horror genre.
Ironically, this movie has a lot of restraint, which is part of what sticks with you, is how much restraint it has in scenes.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to that sort of the meta that you were talking about, where at any one point could have gone off the rails ridiculousness. and it really kind of stayed in. It sort of got like, oh, what is going on here?
See, I feel funny about that because the ending absolutely goes way the fuck off the rails.
It does.
But at the same time, because it builds up there slowly and organically,
fair enough, yeah.
it built up again to the point where you can watch this whole ending, which is like 45 minutes of just going way past where the movies would normally end.
Sure.
And you can say, okay, yeah, I expected it to go here. Which makes sense.
Right.
Now get in that bear suit.
That's a fair point too. Yeah, the bear suit. Yeah.
No, and so one comparison and contrast I kind of want to make with this movie, with Ari Aster's other films, is so Ari Aster's other films, The Hereditary, are both, nightmarish, kind of genuine horror. This movie feels more like documentary-ish combined with it gives you a dreamy sense, like you're in a dream, and it does a good job with that, with the camera panning and the vibrant colors permeating the whole landscape. It's beautiful. It almost too weird to be real.
Now, I feel like we're wandering a bit, so let's just focus on getting through the plot of this a bit.
Fair enough.
So, as Tom mentioned, and I think that the first act does kind of end when they arrive in Sweden. So, for the second act, where they're kind of getting acclimated to this festival, kind of having some foreshadowing start happening, these weird people in the background, there's a moment in the movie where they have this drug trip. And I was noticing that there's a lot of things they do during that kind of are, as far as I know, pretty accurate to the experience of acid, basically. Like, a lot of the textures in the movie, like on the tree, some of the clouds, the grass, all starts moving on its own and, like, shifting. Danny, our main character, has this feeling that she has like grass growing out of her feet, which of course is symbolism for later as well.
Yeah, and I do like, so they go through that and then they come into this village.
Kind of an Amish thing.
Yeah, very much so. And I love this foreshadowing where the sort of the elder of the cult, or if you base, let's call it what it is, comes over and welcomes them, and I'm sure you might have caught it, like he was like welcoming everyone, and then literally to Danny he's like, welcome home.
He gives her a hug.
He's like, welcome home.
He gives her a hug.
And yeah, exactly. And it's like, all right, okay.
It's European.
This is
we're
right. Where is this gonna go? And so that was and then you just are introduced to, again, where it could be like seemingly like, okay, maybe this is sort of normal, a little weird, a little off the broken beaten path.
Red flags immediately.
Some though, but not like necessarily too much at first.
Now it's worth noting that we do have a cast of characters who are all kind of inclined to question everything around them, except for Danny. So you get a lot of these kind of just these moments of just kind of hilarity that come from these characters as they kind of point out a weird thing or point out something odd. Like for the elder, when he's welcoming everyone, as he's walking away, one guy says, "That guy had a really red face." Yeah.
Well, and I don't know, was that so Mark's character? I think we love.
I think it was Mark.
Mark, who had met a unfortunate demise.
And deserved.
Yes, and they had made a little bit of a mistake. But some of his lines and just like his character in general was just so funny.
He was. Oh my god.
And I know we can talk more about characters in a minute here, but that was definitely interesting. And early on, as they're getting into this village.
Mark is definitely one of those characters that just he's that voice of reason that just sticks with you.
He's a voice of reason who's completely unreasable.
Oh yeah.
He is so hyperfixated on the weirdest shit.
He is one of my favorite characters. He is my favorite character in this movie.
I feel like I was tied between him and Josh.
Oh yeah, Josh was a good character too. He was the eager, studious person who...
Because Josh was the one who was asking the right questions over and over, and like he was asking the really weird, like detailed questions, like what language is that? Is that minor or large Cantonese? And it's like, who cares what language it is, Josh? But he cares, and damn it, it shows.
Unfortunately, they were red shirts of the expedition.
They weren't red shirts per se,
but they are. It's the whole.
They weren't the last
formula.
They weren't the last woman.
Yes,
they're the extras. That die off.
So we're carried through kind of those initial and then obviously the first major ceremony they see is these two elders in the cult jumping off a cliff.
Which, interestingly enough, for all the main cast out there, they don't really react to that. It's these two side characters who are like from Britain who are like, what the fuck is going on?
They were more red shirts, yeah.
I did not sign up for this. Holy shit.
Simon and Sven, or no, it wasn't Sven. Simon and Connie, yeah. Simon and Connie.
Yeah, Simon and Connie.
Yeah.
Which they were also delightful. They were actually pretty charismatic. They had a certain charm to them that I came to love every time they were in a scene for what little time they were in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they had to represent like what I think the normal person going into that situation, because you had the sort of like with these sort of academics.
Yeah, they're
all right,
all
sort of maybe they're coming from like it's a culture, blah blah blah. But most of us would be like, what the fuck is going on here?
Right.
So I think they really were represented that.
Which I think that with the way they split up the cast too and kind of had Mark sit that one out was probably wise, because instead of having like a silly outburst from Mark, we had the very indignant outburst from the reasonable people.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Mark is definitely the less professional.
Because he went to go take a nap.
I mean, the moment we get back to Mark, the first thing he says is, "You let me sleep through that?"
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Of all the things.
Well, and we get this explanation of, we do, like, we start to learn about why they do it, and the different stages of life, and, sort of trying to explain what they're doing.
They were very thorough about that.
In a reasonable way.
The part I found funny in the movie, if we're talking about the village as a character, is that this village is so paper thin with their excuses. It is like
not even trying.
Like there's a scene where with Connie and Simon, the first thing they do is the reasonable thing, which is let's leave right now. They just killed 2 people.
And then they go, we didn't have enough room in the truck.
Yeah, with like Simon and Connie, it's like,
Simon?
Where's Simon? Oh, he left a little bit before you. Why did he leave? Oh, well, there was only 2 seats in the truck. I could have sat in his lap. There's plenty of ways for his first to get space. He wouldn't need that. I mean, no, he left early. But don't worry, in about half hour, they come back for you.
And the whole village was clued into that weird excuse.
I mean, they're not even trying to hide what they're doing for the main characters. Like, they don't care if they're caught or not. They're giving these paper thin excuses that with even 5 seconds of analysis, you would say, bullshit.
Yeah.
But nobody in the main cast cares enough to.
Right. Yeah.
But, of course, things in the plot devolve, people get killed off, people find out dark secrets about the place, and then but the thing is, when everybody's killed off and we're getting to the final moment of the film, she's crowned the May Queen, she's the leader of our colony. You would think in most movies, it's going to be a horror thing where she's crowned the queen and she has to deal with this horror, and now we do a hard cut to ending. No. We go for another 45 minutes of going through the May Queen ritual, finding out what happened to everybody, finishing the May Queen Festival, going a little further past that, and then we're allowed to end or finish.
Yeah.
That was a roller coaster. That was oh my god.
Which, speaking of, fair warning, if you don't want to see a gratuitous, something like 10, 12-minute sex scene with a lot of mothers around.
Yeah, that was weird. Or if you're squeamish to smashing heads and or gratuitous sex, well, not gratuitous, just a whole bunch of naked ladies of all kinds of age spectrums.
It's not gratuitous in the sense that it's outlandish, but it's gratuitous in the sense that they show a hell of a lot.
Yeah, and I don't even have a problem with it. There's no, I think for most people, that's it's fine. I think there's the creepiness of that scene
So creepy.
combined with just what's making a sort of a sensual moment just absolutely fucked up.
For Christian, it's so funny because
absolutely fucked up.
Every time he walks in, it's taken out of the mood immediately. He starts getting back into it, and then mom holds her daughter's hand and looks him in the eyes. It's he's taken out of it again, and then mom gets on his ass and starts pushing, and he's taken out of it again.
And it is, it's gratuitous, it's creepy,
it's hilarious too.
It's funny, it's funny. Which is I think part of Ari. It seems like Ari Aster does this thing where it's at least in this movie especially, which is part of maybe the meta thing where it's this is so creepy and fucked up, but this is also kind of funny.
Yeah, he has that kind of sense of humor in this movie a lot, which I don't think that was really a thing in the previous movies.
No.
That sense of humor that was there wasn't a thing. And for this movie, it both heightens the tension and helps you to kind of relax a little bit at the same time.
Yeah,
right.
And then, and then let's talk about, the ending, right? So finally we get to this sort of
final ritual.
Yeah.
The final
This
ritual.
penultimate, like, burning down, like the ritual, the sacrifices, the whole shebang of what you think a cult does happens.
And it feels so reasonable. It feels so this is happening. We've been building up to this.
Yeah.
Oh, they hauled out a bear and put her boyfriend in it as a symbol of the beast that was in her life. Yeah, no, that's reasonable. Like this is just stuff that just happens.
Yeah. They're so casual about it. Like, okay, this is just an average day life of.
This is just how they do things in Sweden.
Yeah.
Now,
those
the
Europeans.
question I have that I mentioned off camera or off of mic is, do you think this movie proposes that magic is real?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all of his movies are centered around pagan cults, and they have demonstrated some kind of supernatural force. You know, I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, if I necessarily think. Like, I think it's a good question. I don't know if it's a magic. I guess it depends on what sense of magic it is versus
The magic of drugs.
I think versus some weird drugs, and for me force, like, you know, if you push this idea on someone, you push it, and then you influence them with maybe a drug or with you know, something in their environment. I think you can coerce them to do things that maybe they wouldn't have normally done. So I don't know if I would say maybe not magic, but you know, definitely there is I think a lot in manipulation, mental manipulation,
Brainwashing.
Brainwashing, that sort of thing. What's the limits of what you can make someone do?
I think that with magic in mind, there's a scene where they have the really long dance where, as she's dancing goes a really long time, she's able to speak Swedish. She thinks she can speak Swedish.
Yes. I was wondering about it too. I was thinking about that actually while we were in the car.
And then for every moment after that, like, she starts seeing like the vines on the chair move. She sees like the organ on the table move.
I think a couple of things that I would think come into play there. So I think a lot of that could be explained again by that drugs, right? She's just high as fuck, and or that's part of maybe the explanation of dance, right? When you're dancing, it doesn't necessarily, and they kind of talk like literally, I think she says it, but when you're dancing, you don't necessarily need to be speaking. You're communicating with each other with your body movements by moving around.
I think that with this movie, it leaves the question open-ended enough that either could be true. Because you can believe that there is like this wicked magic that they're fueling through the sacrifices, and that the end of the ceremony is when the magic is at its strongest. Or you can believe that because I was trying to listen to what words they were saying when they were speaking Swedish, and it sounded like they were just kind of breathlessly mumbling nonsense to each other, but she was convinced she understood her.
Right. That's something too that I think, what do you think the significance of the sort of the deep breaths that they would take? The deep exhales, the deep breaths, the whatever
I got the feeling that was they were thinking for crying or screaming, because that's what they kind of start doing when like they're all in there in like the nursery, is like doing that with her.
Yeah, and I don't know. What do you think, Brennan? Did you have any thoughts about those sort of weird, not tendencies, but kind of like the actions of the characters that...
I wish I had some kind of line of logic to deliver to this, but in all honesty, I do not. That whole thing was just one...
Yeah.
I mean, the whole movie was a total mindfuck, don't get me wrong, but all the same, I mean, like, there's still parts I have to digest or even, like, contemplate.
Well, let's get into it. So we talked about the story.
I want to jump in on what Brennan said there, too, because there's a part in this movie where... Like there's a lot of moments in the movie where they speak on behalf of the audience. Like, there's a part where Josh, like, is being very cutesy about, like, you know, is it going to be scary? Ooh, I don't know, maybe it is. And then, like, Christian will say, well, that's really annoying. I hate when they do that. When they build the tension and don't tell me it's going to be scary or not. And then, like, there's also another scene where Danny is like crying on her bed and saying, I don't know why I'm here. I don't get any of this shit. I'm not educated. What is going on? I don't get it. And then what was his name? I think it's Sven is the one that they're with.
Pele.
Pele, sorry. Pele, where he
Which
sits
we
down.
shouldn't. We haven't talked about him yet. He's a big part of them.
Where he sits down with her, explains like, no, it's okay. You're probably the best one for this, honestly, because you're not coming here with a bunch of ideas. You're not coming here with symbolism or anything. You're just here to see what I have to say.
Yeah. Also, you're the best one to join our cult and not be.
But in general, I think that there is a very real line of like meta-analysis in the movie where it's kind of questioning who's the right audience for this movie, who is this movie for, and it's possible that the movie is saying that it's for people that are like Danny, who don't come in with a bunch of ideas and presuppositions.
Yeah.
I think that's a fine wrap up to the story. Let's delve into the characters, because each character was definitely unique and entertaining in their own respect.
I think they do deserve at least a little bit of talking.
So,
first off, Danny.
Yeah,
Right.
Danny, our protagonist. As we've mentioned earlier, she's come from a recently traumatic event involving her parents and bipolar sister who suffocated all three parties. The parents and the sister were found suffocated in their home, with the sister creating this elaborate hose system going from the garage to their respective
If she
bedrooms.
made it, I don't know if she made it or not, because you have to do a lot of work to duct tape a thing like that to your own mouth.
I think there's some truth to that, but I mean, again, I think at the end of the day, it's irrelevant. I would argue that it was still accidental, but either way, leaves you open for interpretation.
And
Bottom line is she's gone through crappiness, right?
Yeah.
And I think we find her, if we want to talk about, honestly, if you look at her like hero's journey path, she's not supported by those around her. She's going through horrible. She's alone essentially, even though she's not. And that's what really I think is this kind of opens up the theme of the movie where she feels so alone, even though technically she's got her boyfriend there, blah blah blah.
His friends, but everybody's so cool.
But they don't care. But they're not really supportive of her, and I think that builds into obviously the ending. But so she's a great character, and then like you were talking about, I think Nick, she kind of also has some moments where it's like she's feeling like help, like we're wondering what's going on, she's wondering what's going on. There's a connection there.
She's a fantastic vehicle for the plot because she's both important as a protagonist. She has a right background to not be asking the questions that the side character should ask, and she, as one of the few women in the movie, is a perfect vehicle for kind of one of the major things in the movie, which is fertility and rebirth.
Yeah.
Christian.
Yeah, the douchey boyfriend.
He kind of comes across as a moron in this movie.
Little aloof. Like, not even aloof, no. He's more like just...
He's very cocky.
Yeah.
But he's also an idiot.
And it's just a little bit, like, not aware, like, not asking... He's not asking the right questions.
There's so many words we could attach to this guy that the movie also kind of attaches to him, like leechy, lazy...
I think for Christian, there's two scenes that really personify who he is, which is right at the beginning when he's kind of talking shit about his girlfriend to his friends, and he's like, you want to make her for like a year, just do it already. And he's like, no, I can't. And then there's the other scene later on where he talks to Josh and he's like, hey, you know that thesis you've been working on for a few years? I want to do that too now. And Josh calls him out rightfully, being like, fuck you, this is my passion, my life, so you can't just come in here and say, you can't just come here and treat it like a hobby.
Yeah, he comes off across as the guy who doesn't really want to. He doesn't want to be a supportive boyfriend. He doesn't really want to work that hard at his school stuff. But he kind of is just like, again, it goes back to where he's not really like a strong enough personality or character to be like, no, I'm gonna drop all this and go do something else. He kind of strings it along half-assed.
Yeah. He constantly strings things along. But he also will throw anyone and everyone under the bus at a moment's notice.
Oh, totally.
Like, later on, when Josh gets disappeared by the
Oh, yeah, that was great. What a great turn.
And then the moment that he does, he kind of says, well, we don't associate with him, we don't believe anything with him, we're not any part of this, we just want to continue our studies.
That's right. Josh stole a book important to this cult.
And the worst part is, like, Josh is like this very studious, very much tie your shoes, dot your eyes type character. And Mark is this real jerk-ass character who's constantly doing things, not paying attention to his environment. Like, he just watched someone's ashes get put into a place he just took a piss. And then, but the moment that Christian turns around, he sings Mark's praises, talks shit about Josh. He's clearly a little bit racist.
Yeah, there's a lot we could say about him.
And he deserves what he gets.
Yeah, I think so too. And we'll come back to it, I'm sure. Josh?
Well, Josh, he's kind of your token intellectual.
He is.
He's very much there just to be the guy that asks the nerd questions and for the movie to kind of rag on a little bit. Like, early on, one of his first lines is like this, like, very clearly, like, kind of dictionary linguistics line where it's just a lot of, like, word vomit where everyone's like, what did you say?
Yes.
I don't understand.
Oh, yeah, when he's like, oh, like, the elder's like, yeah, we're doing this, and this, and he's like, oh, yeah, just like these people in this place. What?
Yeah.
Move straight on.
I'm glad someone understands.
Yeah.
He's also nice because he's one of the few characters who has a moral compass in this movie, so he will call people out on shit while being kind of a sociopath when it comes to the cultures he's studying.
Yeah, and he plays like he's pushing, especially early on, he's a character up until his demise, is kind of pushing to find out more, and like as an audience, you're like, what is going on? Who are these people? We need to like get into this, and he's trying to do that. He leaves his shoes on, he sneaks out, and unfortunately that's basically the end of him.
And then he gets killed by a man in a war costume.
Yep.
Yeah.
They love their mallets.
So
Speaking of Mark, Mark is the movie's jerk ass and absolutely hilarious.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, great, just one-liners.
He has so many great one-liners. He's the guy who will break the tension every time.
He definitely helps keep it light and almost giving that false sense of like hope where like, all right, like maybe this isn't that dark.
Which I think if we're talking about like comedic side characters or characters who just exist for comedy purposes, he is one of the most successful I've ever seen because he actually lightens every scene he's in. He's not annoying to the point that I hate him, but he is hateable to the point that I hate him.
I will say it does. The way he goes out is something where it's I guess it works because he's such a character that's like clearly not thinking things through.
He's clueless.
Right.
He's clueless. And for him to be like, oh, she's just gonna take me over here. Like
she's going to show.
There are people who have already disappeared, Mark. Do you think that's gonna go over?
That's my favorite. That's my favorite death because she's not even trying to hide what she's going to do. She's just like, hey, Mark, come with me. Why? Just come with me.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna she's gonna show me the thing.
Like at least with like Connie's time, they at least try this lie of like, oh no, he went ahead. He'll come back for you later. With Mark, they don't even have to try that. They're just like, hey, here's a shiny thing in the woods. Go get it.
Yeah, peeing on the tree didn't work out so well.
He pissed on their family tree.
That's not great. No.
That'll upset a whole community, pissing on the family tree.
That brings us to I think it's Pele, who, gosh, now this is a dark motherfucker.
He is the turncoat of this whole gaggle of friends. Not something you normally see, but refreshing change of pace, you know what I mean?
He's definitely the one that, he's kind of the Pied Piper. He brings everyone in, he's bringing them lambs to the slaughter, and in the end, he gets kind of his comeuppance by burning with everyone else. Which, speaking of...
I don't know if that was him or his brother.
I think that was his brother.
His brother was screaming, but they both got burned.
Did they both go?
Yeah, they were both in there,
yeah.
because they both get the
that makes sense,
the sap, and then
that makes sense.
Then his brother, like... And you think like, oh, this sap is probably like cyanide or something to kill them really quick. But no, it doesn't do shit. It's just sap.
I know, that was great too.
and then it's this very quiet scene where like everything is like the sound is muted and dull. You hear like very dull fire. You see like the villagers like singing wordlessly outside. And his brother's leaning against a wall. Turns to him and just screams like, oh yeah, he's being lit on fire. Oh fuck.
Pele is he comes off as such a nice, kind, caring character, but you know, I mean,
he came across as creepy as fuck.
He came across creepy as fuck.
Oh, yeah. but he's really creepy as fuck, definitely.
Like the moment he's alone with anything alone with Danny,
moment you see,
like you see, like he's
this guy,
he's creeping on her.
This guy is the bad guy. But, or not, you know,
I don't think bad guy.
I say bad.
I think he was going to be like the Ledger who got killed off early because he was clearly creeping on Danny.
Well,
he was trying to get with her over and over.
Well, and let's think about so like originally though. So if we're thinking about who he's bringing, he was literally like he wasn't bringing Danny originally. He was bringing all these guy friends, knowing because he's knowingly sucking them in to all be sacrificed, and then Danny's kind of like that added sort of bonus.
That's the question though, because I think that there's evidence that Pele probably caused the murder of the family, and he probably invited them to get the May Queen in there with them.
But
he was also bringing the sacrifices.
That's
but maybe, yeah. And I mean, either way, yeah, it came in where.
Because he makes a big deal with Danny about how he was so excited that she was going to come. He was so interested in keeping her around.
True. Yeah, it's it got real creepy real fast, and he knew what he wanted her to turn into, basically, or at least part of. I think he at least wanted her, maybe not even to be the queen necessarily, but to be part of the village. Yeah.
And then finally, Connie and Simon.
What can we say about Connie and Simon?
There's British characters who come in. They're removed from the main cast. They're kind of there to give like the sane person analysis of, whoa, hey, people are dying. What's going on?
Right.
Yeah.
They had the appropriate response to the first ritual where the old people jumped off a cliff and died horribly.
Oh god. So speaking of that ritual, I want to take a second too and talk about why we're so hinged on that one. So with this ritual, before that we get this very quick like one-liner of like, what happens when you 72? And like he does like a little like throat thing, like you get killed. And you think like, ha ha ha, that's funny. He's just being self-aware.
Nope.
But then the 72-year-old couple.
That is some real.
First, this old woman jumps off a cliff, smashes her face in on a spike in the ground. Very gory. But then the second man jumps. He doesn't hit the spike. He falls feet first. He's still alive. And then we get this agonizingly slow finisher of him.
They've got the hammer ready to just beat his
the hammer.
I was wondering what they were doing with that hammer in that scene. Like, what's the hammer for? Oh, never mind.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting characters all around. Effects, right? Is that the next?
I think we pretty much covered the American Recut, but we'll talk about it again. The effects of this movie are top notch.
Right.
The sound choreography is excellent. The camera work is excellent. The effects are excellent. The practical effects are beautiful and horrifying at the same time.
Yep. Great transitions. Great. Yeah.
If you want to talk about a scene in the movie that really stuck with me the most, it's when he's in the chicken coop and he sees what's become of Simon.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
Who's still alive?
So fucked. That was
strung up. His lungs are inflating. They're visible.
Yeah, that was real. That took it to another level for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I think we have talked through a lot of that. The big one, really, themes.
Oh, there's so many themes.
There really are. Religion, community, psychology.
Yeah.
I think that for me, I just want to say the major three themes because this is a movie where it's wonderful in the sense that it's so broad, so open-minded that you could realistically take it with almost any theme.
Yeah.
And find ways to make it work.
You're totally
But I think that the major three themes for me are birth and death. Paganism as sort of a theme.
Yeah.
That's not really a theme though, but whatever.
It
and
is.
Then kind of an analysis of horror as a genre. Because there's kind of a deconstruction of the genre in general.
Yeah. I think those are all good ones. I think I'll still expand on the life and death part, as in the how again we're dealing with emotions, dealing with grief, dealing with different things that happen in life, controlling the unknown, the fate of us, what happens to us, uncertainty. I think those are all big parts of the movie as well.
Those are themes. Definitely, I agree. I'm with you guys on life and death. I'm with on moving on and just psychology, like just the whole philosophy of like what's real, what's not. You know, I mean, like it's like, is that grass really growing out of my foot? What the fuck is going on there? You know, I mean, like what's?
I think that's where I want to still harp on the is magic real or not, because you can argue that magic is real for paganism in this movie.
Yeah, and you could argue that magic is magic in the sense of drugs or influence.
You can also get that she's absolutely just drugged out.
Because I guess what is magic, right? And you can ask that question if you want to break it down. I don't know.
Well, this goes back to what you kind of said, like how far can brainwashing push a person? And
apparently that far.
Yeah.
I think one thing, and the reason I think why I'm sticking with this whole discussion of just how we deal with things in life and how we go through grief and really who's there to support us, and I think family is obviously a big part of it, and a part of this movie, and community, and you find just the transition from Danny in the beginning, again being alone, not having anyone to deal with, and then you have this community that essentially they're for one trying to support each other by like experiencing the same emotion as they do.
Now,
then
based on that too, I want to take a moment because I remembered a part of the scene. A scene between Danny and Pale where they're talking, and Danny's like, look, I gotta go. I don't understand what's happening. Like, I've seen people die. There's all kinds of like this weird Celtic stuff around. I don't get any of this. I want to leave. And then Pele successfully changes the topic to, oh, you're sad because your parents are dead. And she's like, what? No, that has nothing to do with this. I'm not worried about my parents. I'm worried about the 2 people that committed suicide. I'm worried about... And he's like, no. It's because you don't have family. And this is kind of the brainwashing that happens with cults in general, is that they pick someone that is very, 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 bad spot, convince them that their problem is themselves, and then indoctrinate them.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, and the whole their society is just such a, trying to, control every part of what happens. We know when we're gonna die. We know what's gonna happen when we do this.
They have lots of inbreeding to get someone that is pure and not to make prophecies.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I think.
Ruben.
Yeah. I think we've talked about a lot.
One last thing I want to mention before I am out of steam for this is when Josh gets killed, it had some real Texas Chainsaw vibes with the Mark mask.
This movie had all kinds of different movie vibes. I got Wicker Man vibes from this movie.
There's definitely Wicker Man with the bear suits.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but it sounds like you're right.
Nicolas Cage salute.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess unless we have anything else we want to really
One last round of final thoughts. I'll start. This movie is definitely a slight deviation from Ari Aster's other movies where paganism is prevalent, but it's not as prevalent in this movie, because we do see demons and monsters in his other movies. But this one's just, it's just centered around this whole community that Ari Aster has established, and it's remarkable. Definitely worth seeing. Tom, any last thoughts on this movie?
So again, I think that it's an incredible story overall. It's the combination of what happens to this character Danny. She cannot control anything that happened to her family. She's feeling this grief, and then you go into a society that controls everything. You're surrounded by this sort of support network, and it's just an interesting way to look at how we deal with things as human beings, and then just the limits of who we are as people, and how you can maybe push that to make other people do things that maybe they wouldn't have done normally. So it's a good watch.
And I would say that this movie was an absolute joy. It has so many interesting themes it's delving into. It's filmmaking all around the board is incredible. Mm-hmm. The characters are all interesting. They play off each other well. The dialogue is all really fun. And there's a strange combination of morbid humor with this very suspenseful horror movie. It revels in what it is. It isn't afraid to hold back any punches. It's one of my favorite movies I've seen this year.
Agreed. All right, well, this has been Brendan.
And Nick.
And Tom.
See you next movie.
See ya.